so they couldn't hear a thing. Then he ordered them to tie him tightly to the ship's mast, upright with thick ropes. He gave them a specific command. No matter how much I scream, beg, or threaten you to untie me, you must tie me tighter. As they sailed into the range, the music started. Just as he predicted, Odysseus lost his mind. The ancient text describes him squirming, screaming, and signaling to his men to release him. The rational Odysseus was gone. The primal Odysseus was now in charge, and he was desperate to destroy his life for a moment of pleasure. But he couldn't. The ropes held. His men, unable to hear his pleas, followed his previous orders and tightened the knots. They sailed past the island. And gently the music faded and Odysseus's sanity returned. He survived not because he was strong in the moment, but because he was smart before the moment arrived. This is the psychological concept known today as the Ulysses Pact. It's the understanding that you are actually two different people. There's the cold state you. Yeah, the logical person watched in the 8th century BC. A blind poet composed a poem that would become the foundation of Western literature. That poet's name was Homer, and that poem the Odyssey. On the surface, it's an adventure story about Odysseus, a veteran of the Trojan War, trying to navigate a chaotic ocean to return to his family in Ithaca. But if you look a little closer, you'll start to realize that Homer wasn't just writing fiction. He was writing a psychological manual on how to survive the human condition. Unlike other ancient heroes like Achilles or Hercules who relied on godlike strength or invulnerability, Odysseus was just a man. He was mortal, he was flawed, and he suffered. He didn't survive because he could punch harder than everyone else. He survived because he mastered his own mind. We're talking about this text today because the monsters Odysseus faced, seduction, ego, laziness, and despair, are just as relevant today as they were then. Human technology may have changed, but human nature certainly hasn't. So, if you feel like you're drifting, or that you're capable of more and can't seem to unlock it, it's possible you're falling into the very same psychological traps that nearly killed Odysseus 3,000 years ago. So, with that in mind, here are 3 mistakes that are silently destroying your potential and how to fix them, all from the philosophy of Homer's Odyssey. Mistake 1, the lie of willpower. There's a lie we tell ourselves every time we set a new goal. Whether it's getting in shape, building a business, or fixing a relationship, we tell ourselves that when the time comes to do the hard work, we'll be strong enough to do it. We rely on willpower, and almost every time we fail. But the reason isn't that you're weak, it's that you're fighting against your own biology. Odysseus realized that the secret to survival wasn't becoming tougher. It was admitting that in the heat of the moment, he couldn't be trusted at all. Famously, on his voyage, Odysseus had to sail past the island of the Sirens. The Sirens were monsters disguised as beautiful women who sang a song so hypnotic and seductive that any man who heard it would instantly lose his mind. The song promised them everything they ever wanted: knowledge, pleasure, glory. Every sailor who heard it would inevitably jump off his ship and swim towards them, only to drown or be eaten on the jagged rocks. Odysseus wanted to hear the song. He was a man obsessed with experience, but he knew that if he heard it, he'd die. He knew that future Odysseus would be a drooling idiot the moment the music hit his ears. So, he came up with a tactical plan. He ordered his crew to plug their ears with beeswang this video right now that wants to be successful, healthy, and focused. Then there's the hot state you. You know, the late night, tired, stressed, bored, and/or drunk you that doesn't care about your goals and only wants that instant dopamine hit. If you leave the decision up to that you'll sabotage yourself every single time. The lesson from Odysseus is that if you want to win, you have to treat your future self like a liability. Real discipline is the humility to admit that you're not a god, but a man with breaking points. Odysseus became a legend not because he conquered the Sirens, but because he conquered his own ego. He tied himself to the mast before the music even started. If you want to reach your own version of home, you have to stop trusting your future self and start binding him to the plan. Mistake 2, the curse of visibility. We live in an era that worships personal branding. We're told to put our names on everything, to announce our goals before we achieve them, and to demand credit for every win. We think that being known is the same thing as being successful, but the Odyssey offers a brutal warning. The moment you need the world to know who you are, you make yourself vulnerable. The greatest tactical advantage a man can hold is anonymity. The hero's journey isn't about becoming famous, it's about getting the job done. And usually the one thing standing between you and the finish line is your own need to be recognized. Odysseus and his men found themselves trapped in the cave of a giant man-eating cyclops named Polyphemus. The monster is too strong to fight. He blocks the exit with a massive boulder and eats 2 of the men every morning. Odysseus realizes he can't overpower the beast and he has to outsmart him. He gives the giant strong wine until he passes out. Before he falls asleep, the giant asks Odysseus, "What is your name?" This is the critical moment. A lesser man would have announced his titles. "I am the king of Ithaca, general of the Greek army." Instead, Odysseus sees a strategic opening. He lies and says, "My name is Nobody." Later that night, Odysseus drives a burning stake into the giant's eye, blinding him. The giant screams in agony, waking up the other cyclopses living in nearby caves. They rush to the entrance and yell through the stone, "Who's hurting you? Who's killing you?" The blinded giant screams back, "Nobody is hurting me. Nobody is killing me." The other monsters shrug, assume he's drunk or sick, and walk away. So, Odysseus's brilliance wasn't his strength. It was his willingness to erase his own identity. By being nobody, he became invincible. But the story doesn't end there. And this is where the real lesson lies. Odysseus and his men sneak out of the cave and run to their ship. They're free. They've won. But as they sail away, Odysseus looks back at the blinded giant on the shore, and his ego flares up. Survival wasn't enough. He needed the giant to know who beat him. Against the begging of his crew to stay quiet, Odysseus shouts across the water, "If anyone asks who blinded you, tell them it was Odysseus of Ithaca." It's a moment of pure arrogance, and it costs him everything. Now that the giant has a name, he prays to his father, the sea god Poseidon, to curse Odysseus of Ithaca. Because the target was identified, the curse landed. This single act of ego turns a simple escape into a 10-year nightmare of shipwrecks and death. If Odysseus had just kept his mouth shut, he would have been home in weeks. But because he craved the credit, he ended up losing a decade. The nobody strategy is the discipline of silence. It's working out for 6 months before you post a picture. It's building the business before you change your bio. It's letting other people think they won the argument so you can close the deal. The moment you demand credit, you hand over your leverage. The world doesn't need to know your name for you to win. In fact, you usually win because they don't know you're coming. Don't be Odysseus on the boat. Be Odysseus in the cave. Be nobody, and let the results speak for themselves. Mistake 3, the golden handcuffs. If you ask most people to describe their dream life, they'd probably describe a permanent vacation. We chase passive income, early retirement, and a life free from stress, pain, or obligation. We convince ourselves that the goal of the game is to reach a point where we never have to struggle again. But the Odyssey presents a terrifying counter-argument. A life without struggle isn't a dream. It's a slow, suffocating death of the soul. The most dangerous trap Odysseus faces isn't a monster that wants to eat him. It's a goddess who wants to pamper him. This lesson takes place on the island of Ogygia, home to the nymph Calypso. After losing his ship and crew, Odysseus washes ashore and is taken in by the goddess. She falls in love with him. For 7 years, she gives him everything a man is supposed to want. She offers him unlimited food, wine, and sex. The island is a literal paradise. Perfect weather, no enemies, no work. Even more tempting, Calypso offers him the ultimate gift of immortality. She promises that if he stays, he will never age and never die. He can remain a young, healthy god forever in a garden of pleasure. By modern standards, Odysseus had made it. He'd achieved the ultimate retirement package. He should be ecstatic. But when we see Odysseus in this chapter, he isn't celebrating. The text describes him sitting alone on the beach, staring out at the gray ocean, tears streaming down his face, heartbroken with longing. Odysseus is miserable. Despite having everything, he's desperate to leave. He wants to go back to Ithaca, a rocky, rugged island. He wants to go back to a wife who's aging, A kingdom in chaos and a life where he'll eventually get sick and die. But why? Why would a sane man trade immortality and paradise for a difficult mortal life? The answer is agency. On Calypso's island, Odysseus is a kept man. Nothing he does matters. There are no stakes. If you can't die, your life has no weight. If you can't fail, your success means nothing. This so-called paradise was in fact a gilded or golden cage where all his potential was just rotting away in comfort. He realized that the friction of life is what gives it texture. He chose the pain of reality over the anesthesia of fantasy because the pain was real and it was his. This is a massive wake-up call for the modern era. We're drowning in cheap dopamine and easy comforts, keeping us trapped in golden handcuffs where we trade our ambitions for safety. We're all on Calypso's island, numbing ourselves with distractions, wondering why we feel depressed despite having so much fun. The lesson is that we humans are biological machines designed to solve problems and carry loads. And when you remove that load, you don't feel free. You feel weightless and lost. Depression often creeps in not when life is too hard, but when life is too easy and meaningless. Homer's Odyssey teaches us that the good life isn't the absence of pain, it's the presence of meaning. And so Odysseus walks away from the goddess and builds a raft with his own hands to sail back into the storm. He chooses mortality. He chooses the struggle. And if you're feeling stuck in a comfortable rut, looking for a way out, realize that you might have to destroy your own paradise to find yourself again. You have to be willing to trade the safety of the cage for the danger of the open sea. Because a safe life is not a life. It's just a long wait for the end. Ultimately, the Odyssey is not just a story about a man trying to get back to a specific island. It's a story about nostos, the Greek concept of homecoming. For Odysseus, home wasn't just a location on a map. It was a return to his true self, stripping away the distractions of ego and the comfort that threatened to erase him. Most men never make it home. They drown chasing the sirens of cheap pleasure. They get eaten alive by the cyclops of their own ego. Or most tragically, they rot away on Calypso's island, safe and comfortable, but dead inside. You have the map. You know where the traps are. If you want to survive the modern world, you have to stop hoping you'll be strong enough and start engineering your discipline. You have to stop screaming for validation and start winning in the dark. And you have to stop praying for an easy life and instead build the raft that takes you back into the storm. And that's our video. My name's Dan, and if you enjoyed this video, please do make sure to check out our full Philosophies for Life playlist. And for more videos to help you find success and happiness using beautiful philosophical wisdom, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching.